so much more.
Live and local.
Alan Stiles on Sactown Sports.
Yeehaw! The Roundtable is fully loaded and back with you for the next hour. Chris Watkins, Brenden, Nunes, and Frankie Cartoscelli. Frankie.
We bring the boom!
That's right.
Wait, is this first day back?
On the Roundtable.
Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
First day back. Frankie, how you been?
The smooth sounds of Kid Rock welcoming me back, and Alan's donuts downstairs that were all the same. How'd that happen, man?
What do you mean? Oh, no. Well, actually, I
all
went
just plain glaze.
No, not at all. And it's
There
funny.
was one old fashioned.
It was kind of a social experiment because when I went down and checked it out at about 10:30, because I got a dozen, all 6 glaze were still there, and all 6 of the other donuts were gone. So now I thought I was playing it safe because everybody likes glaze. Apparently, everybody doesn't like glaze because that was all that was left. I got different donuts.
I'm giving you a hard time. It was good. Thank you.
I did not
for
get.
putting them
Yeah,
there.
that's the number one. CBS, look it up. CBS News, Natomas Donuts, number one.
I did get bad donuts. It was a social experiment, guys.
Okay, yeah,
That's
All
right.
It was.
Couldn't be a nice gesture. It
It was more than a nice gesture. It was more.
And I like the note. The note was a real nice touch.
the ones he gave us in here. Verlad and I both started laughing as soon as we saw the
What do
selection.
you guys want? Some sprinkles?
Just not 4 glazed,
Probably.
one old
There was
fashioned and one
sprinkles.
maple.
There was a chocolate in there
Is there
somewhere.
a maple bar in there?
Yeah,
There was one
maple.
maple bar, one maple
And
bar,
then,
and 4
Dave
glazed.
says the maple's not good.
Okay, that's very stupid.
I think the maple bar is the
So
donut.
you can't make everybody happy.
What
This is
is
the
his-
last time I bring damn donuts.
What is his
I'm not-
donut of choice? Like a bear claw? Like no.
No, he was housing. What does Dave look like to you? He was housing the old fashioned. He's an old fashioned. You look at Dave's face. That's an old fashioned donut face.
We're not slandering maple bars on.
I'm
on
just
these
saying.
airwaves.
Next time, bring 5 maple bars.
That's right.
I agree. Make
And
the
then
whole
somebody say, "Where's the sprinkles at?
make the whole thing maple bar.
Where is the sprinkles at, guys? Let's sprinkle in some Kings here
There you go.
on
Wow.
the round table.
Clean.
Senor Segway strikes again.
Thank you.
What is that? Is that a 3 or a 4?
Oh, that's a 4-star
Thank
transition
you.
right there.
I Senor Segway strikes again. Thank you, guys. We were having this conversation, and there's so many rumors going on right now, not just with the Kings, with everybody. And there was that report as far as whether or not the Kings would move on from some of their guys. Mike Scotto is going crazy right now. He just sat down with Jake LaRavia, and he says this, and initially when I read it, I think we already knew this, right? Looking ahead to the offseason, rival NBA executives are monitoring the trio of Domantas Sabonis, Zach LaVine, and DeMar DeRozan with the belief that Sacramento will explore the possibility of trading at least one of those players either this offseason or before the trade deadline in February. So, like I said, I quote tweeted it. I said, this is what we already knew. DeMar DeRozan, goodbye. And Frankie, somebody responded to me and said, I mean, I think you could get a better haul for Domantas Sabonis, which I don't disagree with. But then I started thinking, is there any world where the Bulls are still on the Kings and DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine and Domantas Sabonis is gone?
I don't see it happening again. Like I think that for a Domas deal to happen, it would. I don't know if people are expecting a return though in that deal. I mean, what kind of a return would it look like even if that were to take place?
Right.
And I think our good buddy Matt George was, theorizing that Lonzo Ball is going to become available this offseason. Maybe the Kings could try to get Lonzo Ball. And I think Brenden, maybe, I don't know if it's Brenden or Chris, one of you, I think, or both of you maybe have been enticed by the opportunity to bring in Lonzo Ball to Sacramento. But I don't know if making the Kings officially, if they weren't Bulls West already, you're officially Bulls West, having Lonzo Ball run point with DeMar DeRozan.
Just go get Vucevic while you're at it. Kobe White.
Might as well. Which
Yeah.
that's the trade candidate that Alan was highlighting yesterday. But no, I don't see Domas being, in my opinion, truly a trade candidate right now. I mean, I think that out of that 3, the quote unquote Sacramento Big 3, which by the way, we need to be a little light on the Big 3 label.
I didn't read that part. That was from NBA Central.
Okay,
I did not read that.
I know you didn't read
on
it, but
purpose.
but I saw it. It's been in my head all morning. That
Yeah.
the Big 3. I think that it's kind of just it's DeRozan. I think DeRozan is the player that's going to get moved, and his contract is the smallest, the least amount of money guaranteed. He's partially guaranteed next year. It makes the most sense.
Mhm.
I just feel like Domas is someone right now that pretty firmly planted in Sacramento, unless something crazy happens.
Tend to agree. I think DeMar is probably still the easiest to move. Maybe Domas has the best value. All three of the guys probably are fairly situational. There's going to be some teams around the league that are interested and others that maybe just the play style turns them away a little bit. But I feel like DeMar is getting a little bit underrated almost in this whole process. He's on a fine deal, around $25 million for what he does. I think is around market value. He's a guy that matters a lot in the postseason. Like, New York had some spacing issues, so it doesn't make the most sense, but you could see that they needed a big-time scorer, and DeMar is still a guy that's a big-time scorer that can get you buckets. I think there's value on a postseason team. Like a team like Denver probably really would have benefited from having DeMar DeRozan, So I think that there's places that make sense for him. With Domas, I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if we would have already heard even more rumors about like, hey, Domas isn't so sure about where this is going, like we were hearing as the season was sort of coming to a close. The fact that those haven't come back up makes me think that we could be in the clear of all that. I will say I have a slight concern because a lot of it was about the play style of the team from everything Sam Amick was saying and just kind of everything gathered that how does he feel when the trade deadline comes around, and could that throw a wrench in the season? So I think that more likely than not, Domas probably remains on the team and you look in the direction of DeMar, but I also think Scott Perry should be having phone calls about everybody.
Chris?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that it's just going to be tough for Domas to be the one to see him being the one move simply because of his contract. I mean, he has the most years remaining of those three guys. Like Brenden said, DeMar's on the most palatable deal, I think, between him and Levine, between the two that kind of are, I guess you could say, near expiring. I think that there's definitely a chance. I'm not going to say there's no chance in the world that, the Kings, I think if the right deal comes, I don't think they're going to say, hey, we have an order of operations in which we really want to get this done. I think they just kind of know that at the end of this rainbow, they know what it needs to look like. And I think ultimately the order of operations really doesn't matter as long as you kind of get to your end result in an efficient manner. And I hope that it is kind of like what you guys pointed out, like by the All-Star break, that those talks kind of start to heat up. I just think it's a little tough unless somebody specifically, sees Domantas Sabonis as their missing piece. I just don't know how loud the market's going to be until it really needs to be.
And let's stay with you, Chris, because you've been on this and we kind of go back and forth. We have our trade candidates and we understand that this team would be better if they had a wing or somebody that made more sense than DeMar DeRozan, but you're working around the fringes. And at this point, it kind of just is what it is as far as who the Kings are. Are you fully on the rebuild train? I mean, they can go out. We always joke about John Collins, Draper's guy, or PJ Washington. Yeah, okay, fine. DeRozan's gone. Schroeder and PJ. Yeah, let's rock and roll. Are we just, and we could have the big swing conversation too, but is it just it's time? Is there anything that could bring you back in if you took a big swing on the Trae Young, or is it just I've seen enough?
It's kind of a complicated answer because I think that there's much like we always say, there's levels to it. Like I think I could be bought into, okay, I at this current moment, I don't think that there's any more enjoyment left to really extract.
Right.
Maybe if you bring in a Trae Young, a Zion, like there is some sort of youthful energy or some sort of new promise that they could bring and kind of reinvigorate the timeline a little bit. But realistically, like, no, I mean, at the end of the day, we're supposed to be talking about, these trades help you get to where playing now, like you want to be making these moves to get to the finals. And ultimately I feel like they need to go back to the drawing board. If that's the thing at the end of the rainbow, I feel like this current squad, you're kind of just not going to be able to extract enough value out of in order to get to that sort of level. Now, again, you can kind of rejigger things and maybe you can, for the next 6 years end up as a, first or second round playoff exit. But again, it just kind of matters on what exactly their goal is. And we still don't have an answer because the most we got out of Scott Perry was the sustained success. Right. And that's incredibly vague.
Yeah. I was listening or kind of watching back Scott Perry's intro presser yesterday, and he is very personable. He really is. And he cracks me up. And I really hope he has that autonomy to be able to do what he wants to do. So Frankie, obviously you were out on, are you done with paternity leave, or is this part 1.5? I don't know how this
I have 2 more weeks left.
Okay.
But I'm going to use them when Allie when the wife goes back to work. In August, I'll use them then. But
part 2.7. I mean, I don't know what's going on.
Hey man, you're a dad. You know how it goes.
I know. I hear you. And the reason I bring it up is because when Frank Jr. is playing Little League or whatever the case may be, you got your all-stars and you got your captains, right? And Frankie, you're going to be coaching, and baby Frank is going to be the best on the team, and he kind of holds the flag for the team, right? Every team throughout every level, you got your guy, right? In Little League, all right, it's our guy versus their guy, right? The best player. In mine, back in the day, his name was Shane Spalding. This kid threw cheddar, and he was the guy. Right. Does anybody have a better guy than Shane Spalding? I look at the playoffs and I look at the finals, right? And every team in there has their guy. They're Shane Spalding. If there was a parade, a Little League parade, that's the kid that holds the flag. Baby Frank holds the flag. I look at the Kings. Who the hell is holding the flag? And if we're not gonna, like Chris said, the question of rebuild or whatever, if you don't have a guy to say, no, this is who we're bringing to the table as our best player, and he's gonna go toe to toe with whoever, Brunson versus Halliburton, Jokic versus Shea. If the Kings don't have a guy, isn't this all a waste of time?
Quick shout out to our Shane Spalding with Ryan Johnson, the guy who hit just tanks.
Dude.
There was a trailer park behind our Little League field, and he just would hit. You hear him hitting trailers all.
Everyone has a Shane Spalding.
Everyone does. It's
the Kings don't.
They don't. I mean, they really don't. And I hate to go back there and keep classic Kings radio station going back and digging up the De'Aaron Fox trade, but that was their guy. Mm-hmm. That was their guy who you give the ball to, and you can see De'Aaron Fox scoring in a variety of ways. There were games where he created damage on the three-point shot from the perimeter. There was times where he attacked the basket. He could draw fouls, go to the free throw line. He rarely disappeared late in games. I think that he was criticized most for disappearing early in games. That was a huge sticking point with De'Aaron Fox was, where is he in the first through third quarters? Like, this is kind of tired at the end of games. I mean, he shows up when things are at their peak. And now we have someone on the Kings roster in DeMar DeRozan, who, again, I don't want to minimize the fact that he had a 20-point year. He was ranked among league leaders in clutch scoring. He was a guy the Kings could run through in end-of-game situations. Mm-hmm. But what you're describing here is almost like from a star power, like you do have it tonight. And again, another player the Kings used to have was Tyrese Halliburton, who was criticized for not showing up in the playoffs. Now he's done just that. He's had big shot after big shot. The numbers are there. I think he had a 30-point triple-double with no turnovers last week to help lead them to the finals. So do the Kings have one? I mean, Zach LaVine at his best, we've seen what he can do. But one of the biggest sticking points with him is all of his big games come against teams that are under 500.
Yeah.
And the games that the Kings really need him to show up and down the final stretch, he didn't. And I think that player's in there and someone who can give you 30-plus points a night. But I don't know if we can expect that from Zach LaVine in the 25-26 season. I don't know if you can expect Zach LaVine to be a 27, 28-point scorer. So the answer, the Kings do not have a Shane Spalding. They don't have a Ryan Johnson. They don't have anyone that can go out there and hit home runs into the trailer park and everyone's losing their minds eating big league chew. That's not on the Kings roster right now. And can they find it this summer? Call it pessimistic. I don't know. I don't think the Kings are going to bring in someone that's going to change kind of that narrative.
Go ahead.
If I'm trying to be optimistic, Zach LaVine put up 22 a game last year on pretty much 50, 40, 90.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he had one of the best years of his career. He was pretty healthy most of the season. And that was obviously a big knock that I think stopped some of the gradual growth that you see throughout a player's career. And maybe there's more there. This is a guy they traded Fox for. They thought he had that level of talent, whether they be, management that isn't here anymore or ownership that still is, whoever it may be. It wasn't Scott Perry's decision. Right. So take that for whatever that may be worth. But I think it's supposed to be Zach, I guess. I think the difference in De'Aaron is more of the, I don't even know if ISO scoring is fair because Zach can do that. But I guess, generating paint touches and then making plays from there. And funnily enough, obviously you say ISO scoring, it's like, well, they have DeMar DeRozan, but he doesn't quite fit into their stylistic, I think, identity that they want to establish with this team, which is still the 1A thing that you need to figure out. And if you're playing as fast as you were a couple years ago with the Beam Team year, like maybe Zach can be at number 1, but I don't think that's good enough. There's a world though. I mean, I feel like the fact that he put up 22 on almost 50, 40, 90 last year is pretty ridiculous. And I get why it doesn't get talked about that much, but those are wild numbers.
Let's look at the future. Should the Kings move into the first round? The guys have any updates on the workouts that have been happening in Sacramento? Alan Stiles, Sactown Sports.
Progress.
Quick updates here, some within the show, some outside of the show. Frankie is reporting Aaron Rodgers is finally done.
One Chico native, not Chico native, but went to school in Chico.
Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers.
Yeah, that's from Tom Pelissero, NFL, not from me.
Okay, so Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers. We'll get to that
You don't have to.
later in the show, but
It's-
as well as what we will get to, Michael Scotto got Kyle Ledbetter working real hard behind the glass for us. Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype, who, again, we've referenced him a couple times on this show. He sat down with Jake LaRavia. He also is the one that talked about one of the top players from the Kings, whether it be Domantas Sabonis, Zach LaVine, or DeMar DeRozan, will probably be moved. Michael Scotto is going to join us at 1 o'clock. So that's big. Thanks to Kyle for getting that together. So that's coming up at 1 o'clock as we continue on here, guys. We were talking a little bit during the break about the workouts, and I don't want to sit here and spend a ton of time on anybody other than Grant Nelson, because if the Kings got him, he'd be the best found money that we've seen since Keon Ellis. I don't think he'll last to the second round. But because of that, Brenden, if you're the Kings, would you move into the first round or just chill?
I think I think it's the typical logic that I would take into any year, really, that if you absolutely love a player, then sure, you consider trying to move up, but obviously you got to factor in what it's going to cost you. And, I'm giving you the PR answer here, I guess, but I think it would take you just loving a player, essentially. But yeah, I'd be pretty surprised because I just don't think that plays into Sacramento's current timeline. Like, I'm very curious what they would make of the Western Conference right now. Like, how close do they feel to the second round?
I don't think you want to know that.
I don't know how far it might be. There's a very thin line between flirting with the Western Conference Finals and being in the play-in in the Western Conference. And don't get me wrong, I think the Kings are in the former. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying I wonder what their mindset is.
What have you done with Brenden
far
Nunes?
They are. I'm not saying myself.
How far do you think they are?
I think they're pretty far, to be fair. But if you got the right matchup, like, would I have been shocked if they were competitive against OKC this year? Or not, sorry, OKC, absolutely, yes. Houston.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
They went 3-0 against Houston this year. I know it's not playoffs.
I just think that there are matchups where I think it would be fool's gold to believe that they can get into the Western Conference Finals. Don't get me wrong. But I think that we've also seen this organization be overly confident in the group they have. And I don't think that they want to lean into younger talent, especially not younger talent that isn't like flirting with their second contract. I think that might be different. A guy that's been in the league a little bit, and then you're getting a little younger. I think spending assets when it seems like they want to get better established identity right now, going and spending that on a guy that's going to have to develop through the draft is not what I would expect them to do.
And I'm going to throw it to you, Frankie, just kind of to Brendan's point, though, and this doesn't help, I guess, self-awareness, if you will, because you look at the last two seasons, and yeah, if you're a Kings team that is not being completely realistic, you got the Mavs, who went to the finals as a 5 seed, and you got the Timberwolves, who went to the Western Conference Finals as a 6 seed. That's a lot of playoff revenue, players. That's a lot of playoff revenue. So you could be convinced, yeah, if certain things break your way, you get the Rockets. And, now people are saying, well, look at the Timberwolves. It was a perfect matchup against the Lakers. Then you face the Warriors without Steph. You never know what could happen once you get into the dance. The bigger question is, can they get into the dance? And that's my issue. I don't know what fringe move happens, because we sat here and said, to your point, Frankie, you get DeMar DeRozan and De'Aaron Fox in the playoffs, two of the best closers. I like their chances. Do I trust them to get to the playoffs? That's more of the issue.
Well, and to Brendan's point, the West, there are a lot of question marks. I mean, outside of OKC, they finished 16 games ahead of Houston for a reason. They are set up to win for what, at least the next couple of years. And then I think the luxury tax and the aprons are going to come for them when those players, if they enter free agency and get those extensions. But for at least the next couple of years, I think they're going to win 60-plus games every year. But after that, I mean, Houston has some questions they got to figure out this summer. Are they going to try to shake things up and get KD? Like, they might look different. The Lakers, I mean, LeBron's probably in his last year, maybe 2. Yeah. Can he stay healthy? Who knows? I'm not going to go down the whole list, but, Denver's going to be a little different next year. The Kings have talent for sure, but I feel like to get that piece they're missing, the fact they're going to have to part with something, you're going to create a hole while plugging another. So if you try to trade for a point guard or bring, or say they want to go get, I don't know, LaMelo Ball, you create a hole. You're going to have to move off of probably Domas or
Keegan.
Keegan might be in the mix there. Obviously, DeRozan probably gets moved in a different deal. I don't know how you bring in a or B+ tier point guard without having to part with some real pieces here. And I'm not talking about bringing in D'Angelo Russell as a free agent or anything like that.
Or Schroeder.
That doesn't solve, in my opinion, anything.
Or Tyus.
You're a Tyus guy?
I could be.
Starting point guard?
That's what I'm saying. Tyus and PJ. Brenden said that second round right there.
Not what I said. Not what I said.
That team's finishing 12th in the West, probably.
Pretty sure Phoenix just needed a point guard last year and got Tyus Jones, and it didn't really solve anything.
No.
Nope. They were starting, I think, rookies ahead of him and just running Booker at the point.
Jordan Goodwin for a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
Connor Gillespie.
But
wow.
Connor Gillespie. Wow. That's right. He had a couple of good moments.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think the Kings have that one move. I think it would take a full reconstruction of the roster, and maybe you can make it work, and maybe you surprise some teams. And as we saw, and I don't want to look at the 22-23 season and say that injuries played a huge role in the Kings finishing third in the West, but the Kings need to stay healthy themselves and keep performing. But there were a lot of injuries that year, and you never know what's going to happen in any given year. If the Kings roll out next year with the Levine, DeRozan, Sabonis, the same roster, and bring in bring in a D'Lo, maybe they can flirt with the 7, 8 seed or 9 seed in the West. But I think that we're aiming a little higher here. We're looking, like you said, to get to the second round, and to do something like that, in my opinion, that big, you need some big changes, and I don't know if they're going to make those.
Yeah, Chris, I wanted to kind of preface it in a different way because of what we've been kind of flirting around here. This is what Boogie said this at some point last year when he said it felt like the Kings didn't know what to do once they got to the playoffs. And I think that's where we're headed again because, okay, Domantas Sabonis, the crew, they make the playoffs. Isn't that just a means to an end? They got in, but we know they're not doing anything.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I think that's the frustration with, if they do continue on this path, is that we just kind of feel like we're not saying it cannot be successful.
Right.
It's just ultimately what you're playing for, again, is the championship, or is to at least be in serious contention of it. And it just doesn't, it feels like, you would have to have all of the things line up your way in order to have it happen. And I think, that's just kind of you can get I'm not trying to discredit them, but you can pick which season you want. But the Indiana Pacers have had, you could say, easier runs or more fortunate runs these past couple of years based off of who they've played. They all count the same, but kind of like what Brenden said earlier, there's plenty of examples like the Atlanta Hawks, and you could use
Portland.
many other, Portland, with Dame and CJ. There's many examples of teams making the Western Conference Finals, and ultimately it's my Tyrese Hater comment of just because something happens doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
Right.
They can make the Western Conference Finals. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's a core that you should double and triple down on because it is a Western Conference Finals core. They made it once, but that might have been the one of 10 scenarios in which it plays out. And, to kind of tie it into the series that's happening now, I think that's Indiana's biggest problem is they don't really have, it's like Avengers Endgame or a political race. You need as many avenues as possible to get to the win. And it just feels like OKC has all of these different outcomes that they can have and lead to a win. And it feels like the Pacers need OKC to not foul OKC, and they kind of need to hit their shot. So
when we return, we run the 2 trades for Cam Johnson by the guys. See if they're into either one. Alan Stiles, Sactown Sports. Alan Stiles, Sactown Sports, taking you up to 2 p.m. Yeah, we got a little bit of trade talk with the guys, fully loaded. We are back with Frankie Cartoscelli, back from paternity leave 2.0, Chris Watkins, and Brenden Nunes. Guys, and I know you guys have A's media passes and I don't, so and that's besides the point. But anyway, if they lose tonight, that would be the worst 22 game stretch in franchise history.
You could have my pass.
And
Don't you?
Yeah, they were gatekeeping. Now they here, take it. Like that meme.
Now they're keeping them at the gate.
Guys, be very careful. Someone just broke into my car
and left 2
and
A's.
left A's credentials. You got to be careful out
you're
there.
Mr. Rivercat yourself. Just walk in the place.
Hey, sometimes I do.
Just walk in.
Sometimes I do. Okay. So yeah, I just had to say that because crazy stuff. And I'll be watching the A's game or the Giants game when they're both playing at night. Click on over to it's just they're down. They just wake up. Sometimes when you're in a rough stretch hitting, it feels like you blink and you're always down 0-2. The A's, the game starts and they're down 5-0.
They go down early
in Sacramento
frequently.
Crazy.
Every
Every
game.
time. Yeah.
Every
By
game.
the second inning. Almost every game.
Like the overs are 10 every game, and I don't know why they haven't moved them to 11 or 12. There are so many runs scored in Sacramento. It's Coors Field of the West.
That's what. Well,
Coors Field is in the West.
Yeah,
Of the more West
of the super of California.
Literally play in the NL West.
Coors,
but
California.
More West.
Coors, California.
Sacramento's more West.
It is.
It is. Kyle, and don't you get started, Mr. 80, Mr. I-80. We didn't forget.
Sure.
Wait.
You got me. Sure, I got you. Not realizing Colorado is in the West.
Kyle, when the A's were playing the Giants, I said I was calling it the Battle of I-80 or whatever. And I said you still could call it the Battle of the Bay or something. And Kyle said you can get to San Francisco from 80, and the text line roasted him. That's all. San Diego.
And first of all, I know that Colorado's in the West, and I'm saying that we are more West is my point.
That's right.
Not knowing that you can get to the Bay Area from 80 is, come on, man.
No, you're right. I'm just saying calling it the Coors Field of the West is crazy.
Content is king, boys.
Take this offline, all right? 12:35, that's where you can see some high-level baseball. Carlos Correa, the best Giant that never was, and the Minnesota Twins taking on the Athletics of Sacramento, formerly of Oakland, headed to Vegas, we think. As we talk some trades here, guys, here is the first trade that Kyle cooked up. Kings receive Cam Johnson. The Heat receive DeMar DeRozan. The Nets receive Andrew Wiggins, the 2026 first rounder from Sacramento, and the 2026 second rounder from Miami. So essentially the Kings would be giving up DeMar and the 2026 Sacramento first rounder for Cam Johnson.
So
in or out?
In this scenario, you're assuming whatever 2026 pick that you have will not turn out better than Cam Johnson, I guess is pretty much. I don't know. I'm at the point now where it's like, how much better does adding Cam Johnson over DeRozan?
I don't know.
Does it lift this team up to a different, tier at
That's
all?
what I keep saying.
And Cam Johnson isn't, 24, 25. I believe he's pushing 30.
The brother is 30. No, the brother is 29.
He's 29.
Yes.
He's got 2 years, 42 remaining.
So he's almost 30 years old. Like, it's just
never played more than 66 games in his career.
That's crazy.
The first round pick makes it if it was just player swap for swap, sure. But the first round pick, I think the Kings need to keep those picks for a bigger deal. If they're gonna swing big at some point and make a deal like that, like multiple firsts involved, you got to have your 2026 in there too, I think.
Well, isn't that what the Wolves pick and the Spurs pick are maybe for?
What for in the deal? Isn't a
bigger trade?
Isn't that 2020
Spurs is 27, 31 for the Wolves pick.
Yeah, those are down the line.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't hate it. Essentially, right, we said it's the 2026 first and DeMar for Cam Johnson.
That's right.
I don't hate it. Like, if I'd feel a lot better about it if this was still the team with De'Aaron instead of Zach,
yes.
Which maybe means that it is just an okay value deal. And I'm just hesitating because I don't know that the Kings should be making win now moves, but I think that's probably more the direction I would expect them to go in. Cam's a tough one to get a gauge for his value because the fact that he didn't get moved this last offseason makes me think that their asking price was higher than what anyone was obviously willing to pay, since there were teams that felt like they were on the fringe of contention, and I think that could have benefited a lot from adding him. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a fine deal. I can talk myself into it. I don't love it. Yeah, I feel fine about it, I guess, is really all I feel like I can give you. I think it helps the spacing, helps the size.
It's just it's kind of lateral, though. If you get to bank on more what it does, it's kind of more lateral. Like you're taking away scoring. I mean, 18 points per game, and he shot 39 from 3, so he definitely can shoot it, but different ways. And like he is kind of more of a player that you kind of would. I mean, are him and Keegan kind of redundant at that point? Like he's a better shooter than Keegan, but are they kind of redundant as far as?
It's good to have two of them, though. No,
for sure. And like that's kind of I guess an argument too is I think that I can't remember who I was talking about it the other day, but I think trading DeRozan also kind of opens up that avenue for Keegan. Like maybe you find more of Keegan being more of a self-creator, someone who can kind of create off the dribble more. Definitely has to get better with handling the ball, but I just wonder if this is more of a lateral move. And again, a move that the Kings probably could have made last season before they moved De'Aaron, like you said. Like if the Kings had Cam Johnson to that team that they had already, like I think that might have helped a lot at the time, but now I think the Kings really should be prioritizing a guard right now until they can figure out what they're doing with DeRozan.
Which sounds crazy to say, by the way, prioritizing a guard. Chris, your thoughts on the first trade?
Yeah, I would probably I just wonder why, kind of ultimately to the point I made before. It's just, I don't really, like you said at the start of this, like, I just don't know what exactly it gets you, where it gets you. It seems to me like that's tripling down on being, a 9 through a 7 seed. Cam Johnson's a good piece. I think that's kind of the point of Brendan's, this, I would like it better with De'Aaron. But if you're going to bring him in and you're going to take out DeRozan, it starts to become a little bit of the pecking order thing. How important are you asking Cam Johnson's points to be? Frankie points out is 18 points per game. I mean, that's him, getting full volume in Brooklyn. What's it going to look like on a different sample size? And I just think ultimately Cam Johnson is a very nice piece. He should be your 4th or 5th best starter. But if you're asking him every single night to kind of put it up, I just kind of feel like he's a little bit more of a gadget player than that. And I would also wonder, like, if you throw in an extra first round pick, would you not rather, this is just a random name, but like, would you not rather pursue a Trey Murphy or something? If if you're already going to give up DeMar and a first round pick, how much further of a leap is it to say, well, we'll give up another first round pick for, instead of a 30-year-old small forward, we'll go for a 24-year-old. And I have Trey Murphy's contract, and he's going to make upwards of $30 million by the end of his contract. So it is something that's already locked in. But the bigger point is that Trey Murphy is going to be 25 through 28 for that contract. That's just something that, for a value perspective, makes more sense to me, because you're getting younger. You're potentially, where Cam Johnson, you already know the product he's going to be. There's a chance Trey Murphy turns into, somebody else from ages 25 to 28, and you end up kind of getting really good value on it, where, again, it just kind of feels like Cam Johnson, you're raising your floor, but your ceiling is I think in a way you actually might cut your ceiling off.
Well, it feels like, and I thought this while it was happening, and while Cam Johnson was having the best season of his career, the Nets, to me, tricked off this situation.
Yeah,
They
got happy with what they got for McHale.
Yes, and they said,
standard.
We're going to hold on to Cam, and then that ankle happened, and I thought, man, then you look up, and the brother didn't even play 60 games. Like, that's a problem.
That's crazy.
At 29 years old. Here's the second deal, and obviously, you can say no to I say no all the time. Trade number 2, and this is more straight up. Kings receive Cam Johnson and Noah Clowney, who's about 20 years old, and he cooked the Kings, by the way. The Nets receive Devin Carter, Jonas Valanciunas, 2026 first rounder, but it's top 14 protected. Cam Johnson and Noah Clowney for Devin Carter, Jonas Valanciunas, 2026 first round pick, top 14 protected.
I probably make that deal.
That one, yeah.
Yeah, I think risk-wise, that makes sense.
The protection is what makes it. I mean, does Brooklyn accept? I mean, I don't know if they go for it. I think that's kind of, the Kings are likely keeping that pick, is I guess where I'm at. Like,
Yeah.
they're probably going to be a lottery team, in my opinion. I mean, I might be wrong next year, but I don't know. I think that deal makes sense to me. You fill the backup center spot. You add a forward in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I'm also a lot more comfortable moving other people's picks. I just feel like Kings picks are gold and should be treated as such. Like those things historically for 19 of the past 20 years have been a lottery pick. And so I would, or I guess, yeah, I mean, you can include it even though they didn't have it this year. To me, it just feels like if you're the Kings, you should, it's a blessing. It's a curse. Yeah. It's definitely a curse, but it's also a blessing that I think you could reasonably negotiate with somebody and say, well, especially the further down, 26 obviously isn't super far down the line, but if we're talking 2030, the rights to Rain Fox, right? Like if we're talking a 2032 first round pick, I think we have to take in the past into consideration and say, like, I don't know if I need to give you two of those kind of value picks.
And I think other teams do. I think other teams do
absolutely.
For sure. I think other teams look at Kings picks and say, hell yeah, I'll do that all day long. So
especially when Minnesota and San Antonio are the alternatives. So
yeah.
It's like, I don't want those.
Brenden, we're up against it, but you're doing that deal. I know you're doing it.
Yeah, I guess. I don't feel that much differently than I did about the DeMar one, I guess. And thinking about it more, I do think Cam like fits the team a lot better than really all those guys that are mentioned and does help. I think you need another Keegan, help spacing, size. It just, talk to me about it at one point when we're also including a point guard trade in here, and maybe it'll be a little bit easier for me to get excited about that because you would need both.
Last segment coming up with the guys. We talk point guards. Is there somebody on the roster that can handle the rock for the Kings? And DeMar DeRozan, as he is connected to Miami Heat. Can we get somebody else other than Andrew Wiggins? Alan Stiles, Sactown Sports. We're rocking and rolling here on a Thursday, a.k.a. Friday Eve. We have one more segment with the Roundtable. Then we're going to be joined of Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype, who has been cooking up the article so far. Tyus Jones, that connection, that was Michael Scotto. The Jake LaRavia sit-down, the Q&A that we mentioned earlier in the show, that was Michael Scotto. And the idea of Sacramento trading at least one of DeMar DeRozan, Domantas Sabonis, or Zach LaVine, that was Michael Scotto. That's coming up in 15 minutes, so you don't want to miss that. We're going to ask him about all of that. But what we're asking the Roundtable about right now, point guards and DeMar, not that DeMar is a point guard, but just to have this conversation, guys. Did you see the clip from the morning show? I think it was earlier this week about, is there somebody that could emerge as a point guard on the team? And it was a very quick answer for me. No, I don't. I know there were conversations about maybe Malik, but I just think secondary ball handler and point guard are two different things. Do you think a Tyus Jones, as much as we're joking about it, is enough to say, hey, Tyus Jones, CP3 or Tyus Jones, somebody like that is enough to get the Kings what they need from the point guard position, along with the curveball, the off-speed pitch of Malik Monk from the playmaking position? Chris, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think offensively it works. Defensively, I think is more so the problem with guys like Tyus Jones and Chris Paul. And, both of those guys are really, really small guards. Chris Paul is obviously, like 39 at this point next season. Who even knows if he'll, be able to play. You mentioned Cam Johnson and how many games he played. I don't know if Chris Paul's got 70 game season left in him. Tyus Jones, I think, is interesting, but the initial question of, is there somebody else on the roster? I just don't think so. I think you put it perfectly. Like, I think there's some guys who can handle the ball in a secondary position, but definitely not somebody you want having the ball in their hands for 70% of the game.
Yeah, I think Domas is probably under-discussed in this a little bit. Obviously, a really good playmaker that can kind of, like when I think of why they need a point guard, I think it's to help orchestrate of, hey, Zach hasn't touched the ball in a while. Let's go to this side of the floor. Same with whoever else it may be, Malik, Keegan, whoever, DeMar. And Domas functions as that a little bit, but I still think you need that perimeter creator that can generate paint touches more seamlessly and then make plays from there. The spray threes, that was a key word for so long in Sacramento. We'll see if we keep getting that wording more, or if it just slightly changes to like kickouts or something, you know. But I don't know. It's funny to think that, like, hey, well, they have Domas. They have DeMar actually is a pretty good passer. He was pretty much the point guard of San Antonio until DeJounte Murray came along. And Malik is a pretty good passer, but I don't think any of these guys are enough. I think in combination with Domas, you do need a perimeter creator. Like I said, those paint touches that you're able to generate, I think are so important in an offense that can still facilitate everything and just realize, hey, it's been a sec, and to the Tyus Jones conversation, like I said earlier, Phoenix desperately needed a point guard. Same situation I think the Kings are in, albeit more talent, but KD, Booker, Beal. And Tyus just honestly isn't good enough where you're going to put the ball in his hands instead of some of these other guys.
I think he might have got benched.
He did eventually.
Yeah, he was starting at first.
They tried it out, and then they moved away from it. But, I mean, kind of piggyback off what you guys are saying, none of those players are true point guards. I mean, I think Malik Monk was someone who we'd see him come off the bench and have 8, 9, even 10 assist games, and he worked really well with some groups. But when you kind of have him be your primary table setter, he kind of started to force a little too much down the stretch. I mean, he had those kind of pocket pass around the paint that tried to get it to Domas that kept getting picked off. The jump to passes got picked off a lot too. I think it kind of just made him change his game a little bit. And he's great in the pick and roll. Like, there's no doubt that Malik Monk probably is the Kings' best pick and roll guard, but there are other guards out there that can facilitate and take care of the ball, in a variety of ways. And the Kings, that's the most important thing that they need in a point guard, is someone who's going to take care of the basketball, not be reckless, because the Kings already have a couple of guys that can be a little reckless at times. Even Domas, who is super skilled, and we know what he can do on the floor and how he can, rebound better than anybody in the league. He is a gifted scorer in the post. He can facilitate and play make for sure. But there were a lot of high turnover games from Domas. And because he felt, again, like he had to be the one that was able to play make and set the table. So adding a Chris Paul, who's going to be age 40, would be interesting. I would imagine he'd go somewhere else, first of all. But, like you guys are pointing out, can he stay durable? I think last year he might have played in every game, which is something I didn't really realize until just now. Can that be sustainable? Can you sustain that? And the defense would suffer. And we know the Kings already have a hard time with stopping the ball. So can you find someone that can play a little bit of defense and facilitate? Those guys don't grow on trees, but I'm sure they'll try.
Chris Paul feels very, very Kings.
It does, right?
I honestly don't really hate it.
You believe?
I don't hate it. I've also liked Chris Paul for most of his career, to be honest.
You getting
and
a
I know
jersey?
that people absolutely hate him. No, I don't think I'd be getting a jersey
I
for
get you one.
a guy that my last half a season on this team. But I mean, if he was a super cheap deal, I don't hate it, to be honest.
My question with the Chris Paul thing is, they're not a lot of ring chasers these days because of the CBA, and you got your Jay Crowders. But if you're Chris Paul, both these point guards didn't achieve what they wanted to achieve. I think Tyus Jones wanted to play himself out of a league minimum deal, and Chris Paul wanted to show that he can help on a contender. And I think neither achieved what they wanted to. I think that Tyus Jones doesn't have a choice because he's only 29. He still wants to play in the league. But I think Chris Paul, would you rather do you want to play in Sacramento, or do you want to just say, hey, let me just hang out until somebody that could win a ring needs something and then just hop on there?
Right. Do you want playing time, or do you want to be ring chased?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Guys, guess who's a free agent this offseason?
Tell me
Just
now.
guess. Someone from our morning show would be very, very happy. And I'm surprised.
I know who it is.
I'm surprised he hasn't brought him up.
Ben Simmons.
Yes.
Ben Simmons is a point. He's a
why
free
not?
agent.
I'd rather bring in Ben
Yeah,
than
who needs shooting?
well.
I mean,
Find out.
No.
no, I'm kidding. But I'm surprised that Dave hasn't. Those wheels will start clicking as we get closer to June 30th.
What happened on the Clippers? Just quickly, I don't. He went to the Clippers and
He came off the
A
bench.
role player.
I don't believe he was even playing point off the bench. I think he was playing like the 3 or the 4 for them.
Yeah, I think you worded what happened perfectly. Just what happened.
What happened?
Like,
Whatever happened there.
I think we watched the postseason. I can't tell you one time where I was like, wow, Ben Simmons.
I don't know if he played.
I think hardly.
Yeah. Every time I hear Ben Simmons, I cannot talk about Ben Simmons without bringing up the Colin Cowherd cut. Hey, LeBron,
Yeah,
we're good here.
We're good
Yeah.
here.
We're good here.
Ben
LeBron.
Simmons is here now.
Yeah, Ben Simmons is here now. Guys, I wanted to close with a couple things just real quick. DeMar DeRozan, the connection to the Heat that we're hearing about. I think that, again, we're all just working around the fringes here. We get that. I think that Andrew Wiggins could be a supercharged Harrison Barnes. I don't mind it. I really don't. I know it's Andrew Wiggins,
Gold-blooded.
but I watched that brother.
Always.
I watched that brother win a ring. Okay, and he was an all-star that season. If you're losing,
A fan vote.
Shout out K-pop.
He's a starter.
look,
Yeah.
Frankie, don't.
That
do
was
that.
one of the most
Don't do that.
insane
That-
recent
that's
all-star things
ridiculous.
that have
Frankie,
happened.
don't do that.
It's literally a
He started the
K-pop
All-Star
campaign.
game.
Yeah, that's
Don't do that,
right.
Frankie.
That's
That
right.
brother balled out. Okay, and he locked up Jason Tatum. So don't start.
Don't make me
there.
pull up his numbers.
Oh, God.
Look.
Anyway,
Well, how
on.
do you feel about Andrew Wiggins in the purple?
Not next. Next.
For DeMar,
man.
give me Wiggs. And who did we say, Kyle? It was Wiggs. And
Why are we calling him Wiggs?
it was
now?
Wiggs, two-way Wiggs, and it was another guy.
Never heard that
But-
before.
He's slowly evolving into a Harrison Barnes type. So we're just getting a younger version of Harrison Barnes.
What do
He
we
is. And if you need to identify and set a culture with your team, I think the way that we've seen Wiggins be good is when he's coming into an already set
Okay.
culture.
Okay.
And on the other teams, maybe not so much.
Wiggs and Davion?
Alan, the numbers.
I don't
We're
know
talking
what
about
you're
Harrison
saying.
Barnes. The year that Andrew Wiggins started the All-Star game, he had literally a Harrison Barnes line: 17 points per game, 4.5 boards.
Harrison
2
Barnes is
assists.
averaging 17. Stop that.
He averaged like 20
Harrison
one season.
Barnes
No.
in Sacramento averaged like 15
I was
for his whole-
14. You weren't born yet, Kyle. Let's close here, guys.
Your other name you were looking for was Haywood Highsmith. It was going to
That-
be Wiggins and Haywood Highsmith.
Let's go. And I don't know where we're going, but we're going. All right.
Jaime Hawkins.
Let's take the purple lenses off. They're not doing Jaime, but I'll do Jovic.
Okay.
They won't do Jovic.
They gotta do somebody. Everybody's
Hey,
untouchable now.
they gotta
A's
do
are
what?
cooking,
A's are
by the way.
cooking right now after we were ripping on them.
Well, they don't want to be the worst team since before TVs were.
Hey,
created.
Max Muncy, but not that
There's a
Max
long
Muncy.
game to go.
It is a long game, guys. Is anyone picking the Pacers? Let's just ask that way.
No,
No.
And if
absolutely
okay,
not.
fine. Then how Thunder and how many?
4.
I think
Or Chris?
Whoa.
I'll give him
Which
5.
one? Oh, I was like,
That is a tick if I've ever
Oh,
seen
Chris, come on now.
Yo.
I mean, there's a chance it goes 5, but it's
Is
I
this
mean,
your
the-
Hallie hate?
probably a good portion, but I do
least you're honest.
just think that the Oklahoma City Thunder are just in every way better version of what the
Yes.
Pacers want to do, and I think everything the Pacers are going to want to do well, that is right in OKC's wheelhouse. Like Pacers are going to say, we want to play fast half court defense. We're going to make you run all over the place, switch on all of us, and good luck. And they're going to say, we have all of the pieces to do that for as long as you want to do it. And so I just don't, like I said earlier, like I just don't really see many paths in which the Pacers can win 2 to 3 games. And I haven't even brought up how terrible Tyrese has been against the Thunder this year.
Hold on real quick. And
Without Chet Holmgren.
we got to get to Brenden and Frankie too. But Chris, I wanted to say you should take a victory lap on the Caruso stuff. A lot of people,
No need.
myself included, hey, Caruso's good, but he really did just disappear on that Bulls team. So Chris gets that victory lap. Frankie, Thunder, and how many?
I'll give him 5. And the torture chamber.
Yeah.
Torture chamber is coming, I think. And I'm looking forward to see how that matchup takes place. Lou Dort against Tyrese Halliburton.
Brenden?
I'm out on Caruso ever since I saw him wear a headband over the hoodie. I don't know if you guys saw this at the
Oh, I
intro
saw that.
presser
That
the
was
other
so
day. I
funny.
was like, I don't know about all this. I super hot take here. The Pacers only win if Andrew Nembhard wins Finals MVP on some Iguodala type stuff, because I'm being hyperbolic here, but I just don't think anybody can guard SGA, and
Yeah.
Andrew Nembhard would have to have the absolute series of his life. But the OKC put up like 130 in the regular season
Call
against these
Dellavedova.
teams.
Get Dellavedova back.
Exactly.
Look, man, I'll tell you this much. If Jalen Williams goes cold again, as we've seen him do, anything is possible. Anything is
possible.
That's all I'm going to say. He's Chris Watkins. He's Brenden Nunes. He's Frankie Cartoscelli, who is back in action for at least the time being. We will talk to you again next week. At least they will. When we return, we will be back with Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype. You do not want to move. This guy's putting out the most content right now when it comes to the NBA offseason. And Kyle got him on this show coming up in 3 minutes. Sound Stiles, Sactown Sports.
We bring the boom. That's what we do.
This is the story of the one.